Hello, family, friends, and fellow sojourners. The story I'm about to tell you now was one of the hardest things that we've ever had to endure as a Christian couple. It happened in 1993 when my husband was on a run with the fire department. They were called out because a man had been in a car accident and he had run into a telephone pole and had blood all over his face and was struggling to breathe. Well, when my husband got there, he immediately held his neck in case he had a neck injury. And as the man was struggling to breathe, he was spraying blood all over my husband's face. It was going into his eyes and his mouth. But my husband, being the man that he is, just held on because this man needed help. Well, he apparently, the man that was injured, had told people before the fire department got there. He said, make sure you tell them that I'm HIV positive. So when my husband came back to the station, he said he was going to have to go down to the hospital and get his blood drawn because he was exposed to the AIDS virus. And when he told me that, the first scripture that popped in my mind was, greater love hath no man than he laid down his life for a friend. So I was a little shook up about the situation, but I was just trusting that God was going to take care of everything and that we need not worry about anything. Well, he got his blood tested and it came back negative, but they wanted to test it again about a month later. So when he got his blood tested the second time, it came back positive. And the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, had come to our home, and several other people had come and had asked us a lot of very personal questions. And the reason that they were a little baffled about what had happened was because they said they'd never known anyone that could get AIDS once the droplets were airborne. And it wasn't like my husband did mouth to mouth on this man, but he was holding his head. So they told us that we should not tell anybody, not our family, not our friends, not our church, no one, because they said at that time people were being ostracized or shunned by people that they knew when they found out they were HIV positive because people were so afraid of it. So we weren't able to tell anybody about it, which was hard. We couldn't tell our children. We couldn't tell our neighbors, no one. They also asked or implied that maybe I was already HIV positive and my husband was exposed to it by way of me, because we explained that we were going through a really hard time in our life. And one of the women asked me, she said, have you had an affair? Could you have gotten exposed and then given it to your husband? Which I was appalled at that question. And I said, of course not. And they asked my husband if he was having a sexual experience with another man, implying that he was gay himself. And that wasn't the case either. Then they started asking us about our sexual habits, whether I had ever used his razor, or if he had used mine, or whatever. I mean, there were just a lot of very invasive questions that they were asking. All the while, I'm scared to death because I'm thinking, if my husband is HIV positive, I'm going to watch him waste away. I mean, I had seen pictures of people that had HIV and the scabs and sores all over their face and their neck, and it was just awful how these people were dying. But the idea that I was going to have to care for my husband and watch him die like that was just more than I could bear. Well, the day before he got the test results back showing that he was HIV positive, a man by the name of Dr. Wes Stafford, he was the president of Compassion International, had come to our home to buy a used refrigerator that I was selling, because at that time we knew we were going to get to adopt Ryan, or we were at least hoping so, and we needed every penny we could get to pay for our lawyer. So he came the day before, he looked at the refrigerator, and he said he was going to commit it to prayer, that he wasn't just going to buy it without seeking the Lord's guidance first. So the morning that he was supposed to come back, actually that morning I had called him and said, Wes, you can't come to the house. Something horrific is happening, and I can't sell the refrigerator right now. I can't do anything right now because I'm overwhelmed by what's going on. And he said, do you need prayer? And I said, boy, if ever we've needed prayer, it is now. So he actually came with a man by the name of Alamu Beeftu, who was from Africa, and another man that belonged to his church. And all three of these godly men came to our home, laid their hands on him and my husband and me, and prayed over us. And because we had told him when they got there, he's HIV positive. So they prayed, and we became very, very careful with everything we did, because I didn't know if I was exposed at that time, and my husband was very careful with the firefighters. He made sure that they didn't drink after him, they didn't eat after him. If he had a cut, that he wouldn't let them bandage him, and I'm sure they thought something was odd, because that's not who Gary was. So he treated them differently. So they did another test, and I had asked them when they came in and had questioned us for that hour or so. I said, is it possible that this isn't even Gary's blood? Could it be possible that it was somebody else's blood that got mixed up with my husband's vials? And they said that's absolutely impossible, because anyone taking the blood would immediately put his name on the vials. So that wasn't even a possibility. So they took his blood again, tested it one more time, and it took, I don't know how long it took to get that test, or how long it took to get it back. I just know everything was in slow motion, and it seemed like an eternity to get these tests done. Well, the third time that the test came back, it came back negative. So we were rejoicing and just laughing, and my husband had gone through waves of fear. It would just envelop him when he thought he was HIV positive, and of course he and I clung to each other like we'd never done before. But that day we were hooping and hollering and having a wonderful time. But then in the back of my mind, I thought, is this a mistake? Is this really his blood? So they did it again, and it was negative. So they believe that the vials must have been mixed up. There's no other explanation, because how could he have it and then all of a sudden not have it? But I do believe in the power of prayer. So you can draw your own conclusions, but I choose to believe that God cleansed his blood the day that those three men came in and prayed over him. So I hope you enjoyed this miracle. Take care now. God bless you, my friends. Bye-bye.